Hello everyone, welcome back to another review on the JayBee Milly channel. I am JayBee, and of course with me is Milly.
Hi.
We have Dan,
Hi.
and we have Sophie.
Hey.
So today, as our third lot of seasonal reviews, we're going to be doing a retrospective on Chill Out Scooby Doo, which we're really looking forward to getting into today. Now, of course, as with these seasonal reviews, we will be doing a special interview announcement at the end of the episode, so please make sure to stick around till that. This one is going to be our Christmas festive special, so really looking forward to announcing this one. It is the penultimate one of the month, and yeah, we're just really looking forward to all of this. Thank you so much for everyone's support on the interview so far. It's been amazing. So, without further ado, Milly, as our MC Hammer, tell me what is on the agenda for Chill Out Scooby Doo?
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of skip a plot summary and just jump straight into going through the movie, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
so I guess opening titles, setting the scene. One thing that's like watching this back is the first time I'd noticed this is I actually quite like how I think one of the first things we see is like the names on some of like the bunting and things like that. I really like how they do incorporate people in the opening credits, like the team behind this, Joe Sictor and everybody. It's something that they do, and I really do appreciate it. I think it's always fun to see kind of how they add little quirks like that. Isn't there some like animation where they animated some of the team in one of the movies?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame because I do like these intros. I think the song's okay and the visuals are nice. It's just because the last one of this era we reviewed, I believe, was Goblin King, and that one was just so next level to me with the visuals that they did animate like the characters of the unit directors. I just think this one's always gonna seem like a bit of a step down, but I still enjoy it
Mm.
for what it is.
I do like how they did that. My kind of key criticism with the opening is, and I'm trying to find a way to say this correctly, I'm sorry if I don't, is like the music and everything that they set up. I'm kind of in China in my mind with the music and everything. I associate that with being a warm place. So to then have the stark contrast of you're in the freezing cold snow, I almost find it difficult to kind of acclimatize to where I am with the movie. And I think that's just me just getting stuff wrong, to be completely honest. But that's always been one of my key things with this movie is I always feel a little bit torn in
Oh,
regards to where I'm meant to be. I kind of get the vibe halfway through of like hot temple, but then it's in the snow. And with this music, I feel like it's setting up vibes for like a warm country, and we're in the snow, and that's my main criticism out of the way at the start, and I get it here in the intro. I kind of don't know where I am.
I don't know if I'm embarrassing you or myself here, but did we research or do we know? Because I assume that this is just general knowledge that everyone else knows but me, where exactly the Himalayas is. Like, is it near like Iceland or the South Pole, North Pole, or is it in some parts of Asia?
No, I think oh God, I'm gonna really embarrass myself. I think it's Asia.
Yes,
I
it is.
shouldn't
It's a
have
mountain
studied it.
range in Asia.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
And that's not me being clever, that's me on Google.
I was about to do the same, to be fair.
The Himalayas is a mountain range in Asia,
Minus 22.
separating the plains of the Indian subcontinent. Okay, so th- like you said, the weather it currently says -22. So it's gonna
Yeah.
they've set the scene well. It's just my brain not computing that, oh yeah, that's a hot country when
Yeah, I get it. Like if they could have been a bit more, I guess, simplified. Because if I saw snow, I mean, I guess a few like little bells. It's like I don't know, like something like that. I get what you're saying, but yeah,
just
I'm
something
just
silly.
bad with geography. That's why I didn't do a geography GCSE. Or did I?
Moving
I
on.
don't know.
Dan, what did you think about the intro?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was creative. I thought, I mean, I do like opening credits, but I don't know. I can't actually. I rewatched it this morning. I can't remember what the song was, so that tells me it wasn't that good. And I'll be honest, with opening credits, unless the song accompanying it is like a banger, I'll just fast forward. So with this, if I was to rewatch it again, I would just fast forward the intro.
I
I
don't
just I just I don't want to say all these people's names.
Mm.
I could be wrong. I don't think it was a song,
It
it
was
was
like
more an
instrumental. Yeah, it
instrumental.
was like
Oh,
dun
well,
dun
I'm
dun dun
definitely fast
dun
forwarding it then.
dun 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 dun,
Yeah.
like that dun dun
Yeah.
dun dun dun. Whereas there's been like some musicals, like what was a recent one? I don't even know. Oh, like, even in Crypto too, it's we're heroes. And I'm not even going to attempt that. But there's
For
like, yeah.
me, it's stuff like Stage Fright, the intro song, Stage Fright. I'll sit and watch those credits because the song is just a banger. But with this, it's not even the song, so no, I'm skipping it.
I'm trying to remember what movie it is. Wasn't the one recently that did like What's New or something? Or was that at the end of a movie? Ignore me, I'm on a completely different
remember.
train of
You on
thought.
about Mystery Begins?
Possibly, and they did it at the end of the movie, didn't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah,
That
Yeah,
was
they
a
did.
good
Right.
15 years ago now, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but no, like reason for us reviewing.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Sophie, what was your thoughts on the opening titles if you remember watching them?
I do like it being creative with like the credits to the people working on it. I mean, it's nothing special, but yet again, there's definitely been worse. So not much to say. It is what it is, but it's all right for this movie.
Yeah, I think like you say, they're just all right. There's certainly some things they do well, and like I say, there's some things I just personally found a bit confusing, but that was just my lack of knowledge. I do like how they set the mystery up straight after this, though. I think it's very traditional Scooby having like a professor and is it a research assistant or something that's on a mountain together researching. One person's like, oh, we really have to keep going. The other one's like, no, it's dangerous. One goes on, cue the villain appearing. I think it's very formulaic, but it's what works really well, and it's just true pure core Scooby, really. I guess it's not something that we kind of need to go right one by one, but I guess does anyone have any thoughts on that? Did you kind of agree? Any different thoughts?
No, I agree. I like them.
Yeah. And Alfred Molina in the movie. It's
I
weird.
got a shock when I saw his name at the end.
When we first reviewed it or like watched, I distinctly remember recognizing Alfred Molina's voice, but for some reason now I really had to like strain to hear it. I don't know, I think my hearing's just gone worse, but it's crazy to like hear him in this Scooby movie. It's just, I don't know if this is the right word, but for me, an absolute fangasm moment. It was just too good. I love it.
And so obviously, like we say, it sets up really well, and then you cut to the gang in Paris. And this is just me being stupid again, but I think it's kind of that location to location and stuff just kind of messing with my head. And as well, a different perspective that we're going at here as well is you've got Velma, Fred, and Daphne in Paris, and you've got Shaggy and Scooby in a plane going to who knows where. So starting off with the gang apart, one thing that I do think that especially Sophie, I'm sure, has got something to say about here is the outfit choices for them in Paris. I do quite like what they did here. I like how, especially with Fred, to keep that colours, they gave him kind of like a tourist t-shirt to keep that white presence there as well, to contrast with like the blue sleeves and that sort of stuff. I think colour palette wise and character like identity wise, they translated this really quite well. And while we're on outfits as well, I absolutely love what they do with the winter outfits in this as well. It does look great. So, JayBee, I'll go to you first. Did you like the outfits in this? Do you think they translate over well?
Yeah, they're all right. I can't really remember Velma's, to be
No, I
honest.
can't.
I assume it's either good enough for me not to notice or it's just classic Velma like they tend to do. Fred's was okay. I think the angle, like this is, I think, one of the first instances, apart from the 2002 movie, of Fred getting a little bit of a lovable himbo arc, which I think has been quite a staple in his character now, where he's got that tourist t-shirt on, he's trying to ingratiate himself into all the settings and with his ridiculous phone and oh, I think that's just all part of that character that we kind of have become more accustomed to now. Daphne's outfit is amazing, like she's slaying pretty much as usual, but I do wish we'd seen that a bit more, but it was cool. Yeah, I think they do everyone well.
Right, like I said, jumping straight to Sophie. What's your thoughts?
Well, Valma's was like just her normal outfit with like a red beret on. That was like her outfit. But I will say one thing that What's New does really well is any outfit change, they really suit the gang. And yeah, it's like simple, basic, but it works, which in the past when they've tried a different outfit, it doesn't work. So that's definitely a win. I did like Daphne's big floppy hat. I mean, I was digging it. And Fred being like the typical tourist, that's like so Fred, and I loved it. And yeah, I am a sucker for the winter outfits. I hate winter, but winter outfits are cute.
No, that's true. And I think like you're saying on like what's new and what they do with the outfit choices, I agree. Like for Loch Ness, the way that they styled Daphne's coat, making it see-through so you could still see the normal outfit, make the character so recognizable. There is something about this era where they do just seem to do it a lot better. Dan, what about you? Did you like the outfit choices and how they translated over?
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was a nice opening. It was nice to see because normally if the gang just go to somewhere on holiday, they don't usually change clothes. So it was nice to see that. And I liked that Daphne was really embracing Paris. That made sense for her character. I do love the winter outfits. I love any Scooby episode or film that takes place in snow. And what I really like is I used to hate in the original show for some reason they'd always have Velma and she'd be covered up and she'd have a hat and a coat on. But for some reason she was always still wearing like that skirt, and I always thought that's insane. I don't know, I don't know why our legs aren't getting freezing. But no, what's new? Always they always did the right thing with me. They always had the correct colours, no matter what outfits they had on. They always colour coordinated them perfectly, which the newer ones tend to sometimes slip up with. So no, I really liked what they did with the gang in this film.
That's good. And like we said, so look, that's kind of Velma, Daphne, Fred that's there. I almost wish they'd lingered on Paris a little bit more because I feel like they gave them these brand new outfits, set this really good scene to be there for about 30 seconds before they were off, which to me was a little bit of a shame. But obviously, it's just kind of how the story's been set up. Obviously, as we're starting to say, Shaggy and Scooby aren't with the gang, they are on an all-you-can-eat plane journey. And I don't know why. Again, I feel like I'm being critical from the start in a way that I aren't always, but I kind of don't get why. In terms of them being apart, it didn't exactly sit comfortably with me initially, and I don't know why. I just always imagined that they travel together, basically.
Here's my interpretation. So, yes, narratively, in terms of like as an audience, I always do, and we spoke about this a lot with the Scoob review. It does annoy me when we get Fred, Daphne, Velma sidelined, and then we've just got the Shaggy and Scooby show for the whole, runtime, and then the little sprinklings of the gang, because they're a team. We need them all together. I think that's the best way to do things. But in universe, because they are Shaggy and Scooby are with Alphonse Lefleur, who's clearly some type of French-based hunter slash explorer. I think it would make sense for him to have been on his way to somewhere in France, most likely maybe Paris. And so when Shaggy and Scooby were either boarding on a plane or somewhere to France, he kind of adopted them, or maybe they were bumbling about looking for a plane and he was like, oui, you come this way. Like, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. And that's kind of my interpretation. But yeah, narratively, I don't like it. But in universe, maybe that's my little theory.
And Dan, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever saw this film. I when it opened with just Fred, Daphne, and Velma, I did think, oh no, it's going to be another one of those where they get sidelined. But it wasn't in the end. They do a good job with it. But yeah, I think narratively they just needed Shaggy and Scooby to be sort of flying separately, and so I don't think they had enough time to like sort of explain why. I mean, they could have thrown a line like, I don't know, maybe Shaggy was attending a wedding or a funeral or something and had to join them later. But yeah, it just seems weird. It seems weird that they had to get two separate planes. I don't know. I think it was just the writers just needed them to be separated. So I think I don't know, and I do find, as much as I do enjoy the Paris scenes, I think it's just too much of a weird juxtaposition. Like it takes me out of it. Like it starts so snowy, then it goes to Paris, then back to the snow. So I don't like. I think it's a weird opening. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And Sophie?
I don't mind the concept, that they're not together and they'll not travel. Like, I mean, I like that they're always together. But the idea that they weren't traveling together for whatever reason why, I thought that was quite an interesting concept. I just don't like how that concept is continued throughout the movie, but we'll get onto that bit later.
It does become a little bit repeat of Shaggy Scooby, cut to the gang in the mystery machine. Shaggy Scooby, prove that they're still traveling. It becomes a little bit that way. But there is an underlying narrative to it, and there are some positive points, and I'm making it sound like there isn't. So, France Lafleur, and I think I've just completely crucified the pronunciation of his first name there. is ultimately like a bad guy, right? So that's how he comes across. So they've kind of tricked Shaggy and Scooby onto the plane, and Shaggy and Scooby are put in a crate and parachuted out. And they end up in, like we say, is the Himalayas, and they're at a temple. They're looking at carvings. They find like crystals, stuff like that. They are going on their own journey, and they need to try and get their way back to Fred, Daphne, and Velma. So they go on a mission to try and reach the weather station to send them a message. And I think ultimately they set up quite a good story for them. You can see that there is a clear narrative, and it feeds well back into what they were setting up in the first scene with the professor and, you know, the villain and all that sort of thing. It's almost like it's just the bit, like we said, in Paris, been so far away, different climate, everything, that's just really kind of makes it a little bit jarring. I do think that there is a good premise set up though, do you?
Yeah, you know, I think there's an intriguing premise there. I think more of an intriguing premise for something classic Scooby in terms of that mystery aspect. I'm not sure we're going to debate on if they follow through with that promise necessarily, but I think with the way it's set up, it's definitely more like mystery, like is this really happening, what's the story behind this, versus something like Monster of Mexico, which also has quite a big hulking villain, but it's more how do we actively avoid this thing that's after us. It's more how do we find out more about this. So I like that a lot. And also I think we get this scene with James Hong in, which is awesome. I know he's got such a long like career, but I primarily know him from Kung Fu Panda. But it's just cool to find those recognizable voices in there. I think that's awesome.
And can I ask Sophie, what do you think? Do you like that kind of idea that, you know, they're stranded, they have to get their way back to the gang, they have to, you know, face the abominable snowman, or that, you know, when they can finally pronounce it as that, and
Yeah,
get to the weather station?
I agree. I do like the concept, but I agree that it is quite repetitive. It does make the movie feel a lot longer than it is. That's pretty my downfall to it. Like I said, I love the concept. Maybe an episode that would work, but as a movie, well, when we do like Smash or Pass later, this could be like the breaking point to it. I'm not sure which way I'm gonna go yet. But yeah, it's just a lot of back and forth. And also, I just want to say, I don't know how Shaggy and Scooby doesn't die in this movie. There's a lot of times where like Scooby's just like himself, you know, with his fur on, and Shaggy's just in his short sleeves. And I'm like, mate, you'd both be dead by now. That I'll never understand. So there's a little flaw for me.
Yeah, like JayBee said when we were Googling it, it's currently -22 in the Himalayas. Like,
Yeah.
you're not wearing a t-shirt.
And even
Not
They make me
defrosting the
cold just
car at
looking at them.
-5, my fingers are like, ugh. So goodness knows what -22 would be.
Yeah.
And at that altitude as well. Like, I don't even know if that's a safe altitude.
I must agree. I'm at the same point as you, which is why I'm kind of enjoying talking this through. I'm on the fence right now as to like, okay, I need a verdict at the end of this, and I kind of don't know what it is, and I need to work that much out. Dan, what did you think? Do you enjoy the idea of kind of, you know, what they're trying to set up here, that, you know, it's a quest to bring the gang back together?
Yeah, actually, once the film gets going, once they're actually in the Himalayas and the plot gets going, I think it's really good. I just think getting to that point was a bit of a mess. It feels like they had a premise that had the idea of, oh, when the gang is split up and they go this direction, but then they kind of struggled to make that work. It just feels like the opening just is so random, getting the like laying out the pieces that once it gets going, it's fine, but just getting there, I think, is a bit messy. It feels like a first draft, and then they just didn't have time to sort of go back and think of a better reason. And also, yeah, I've been out in this weather and it's not even minus, and I'm freezing in a t-shirt. Like when I've just had to nip out for something. So yeah, no, they'd have definitely just. I feel freezing watching them as well. I don't like it. I don't.
I'm almost inclined to agree with Sophie that this could maybe have been a good premise for an episode, because there is a little bit of a, we take some time to get going, and there's a bit of backwards and forwards. There is one key point that I think is what makes this a movie, and we're about to come on to that, but the next bit really is a bit of flashback and forwards. Shaggy and Scooby are on their mission up to the weather station, where there is a radio channel as well, and we keep cutting back to the rest of the gang. ultimately, the guy, Shaggy and Scooby get up to the radio station, and we meet Del Chillman as well. And that is the bit that makes it a movie for me, to have a person coming back, which we rarely see unless it's the Hex Girls. And not only that, but to say, oh, last time we saw you, you're obsessed with the Loch Ness, to actually, like, I think you used the word canonize, like a previous Scooby movie. We
Yeah, there's
never
like
see that.
definitely two things now in the same type of multiverse, like in the same universe. This is canon to each other. Yeah, like even with the Hex Girls, like like it was like it's not just like, oh, last time it was okay when it was either, oh, who are you, or oh, it's them, we already know you from where, don't know, but you're here, we know you. But yeah, that's awesome.
That's my kind of biggest flaw with Scooby, and I love that they've done this here, is they have some great characters that we'd love to see come back, and we just never do. The Hex Girls, I think, were so lucky that that was the one thing where they were like, do you know what? This is right, we're bringing them back. But there's characters like Coco Jablo recently that I'd love to see return, and to actually see it done here, it's just something that I personally don't think they do enough. So to see it, I was really excited. And obviously, any mention of the Loch Ness, I'm going to be excited.
Warner Brothers say they don't like Scrappy, but we've heard and seen a lot more of Scrappy like so far than we have of Googie. Like that's really erasing a character. That's crazy.
Sophie, were you excited when Del Chillman was on the screen?
I love Del. I've said it before. I love him. Honestly, he's like one of my favorite side characters from Scooby. I also love his t-shirts. Like they match the theme of the movie. Like the first one he had a Loch Ness monster on, and this one he had like Bigfoot's footprint on. I love him. He's such a great character, and he needs his own show. Like I love him. He's just amazing.
I do like as well that one of the characters was like a huge fan of him as well. It's like, oh, you can kind of see that. What was she called again?
Minga, which I don't know if they did like much demographic testing, because that in the UK, like Minga, like I don't know why that happened, but it is what it is. I mean, I guess there is probably just a little bit of that cultural slip in terms of, because even then, we've had people called Dick. I mean, we had a whole thing in the Scoob review where I was talking about how much I love Dick. So that type of stuff does go on. And you can easily say something about Scoob, like the best part of Scoob is Jason Isaac's dick, and that is a completely legitimate take. But in out of context, that sounds wild. So it is what it is. Yeah, here's Minga. What do we think of Minga? Let me ask a question. What do you like Minga?
It's just a character. I think they introduce, I'd say, is it 3 or 4 good characters here?
Yeah,
They set them up well. They give them all a story. They give them all interest. But
Pemba, Minga, Professor Jeffries, and Alphonse Lafleur, and obviously Dell. That's kind of our cast of characters, unless I'm missing someone.
But for me, I remember saying this in the first review, and I can't remember why it bugged me so much at the time. But it's like, with there being such specific characters that you know so well, you get to the unmasking at the end, and it's like, which one of you is not here? You're there, you're there, you're there. Oh, it's you. And I don't know why, but that kind of just bugged me a bit. But before we go into that, really, Dan, we didn't get your thoughts on the return of Del Chillman.
Yeah, I liked it for like the continuity reasons. I don't mind Del, but I think like had he not come back, I wouldn't have been like forever thinking, oh, I wonder whatever happened to him. But it was nice. It was that nice little acknowledgement, and it makes sense as well. It makes sense that he tried to find the Loch Ness monster, didn't happen, so he thought, well, what other sort of creature is there I can go after? And I think this is something, it makes sense as well for What's New, because I think that's something they did really well. Obviously, Mystery Incorporated doesn't really count because that was deliberately a serialized story. But with What's New, they actually did have recurring characters. They would have characters that would pop back up every now and again, which I liked, which should happen more. I know the gang travel the world and stuff, but you'd think they would run into certain people. I mean, they are sort of celebrities in their own right. So I don't know. It does seem weird. So it was nice. It was a nice little change because it doesn't happen often. So I liked it appearing.
See, that's something I agree with as well. Like, I think the thing with the What's New era is the people almost felt real. It was a real universe. You bump into the same people sometimes, and so for that to be there. And a lot of what's new as well, they're going to see relatives, they're going to see friends. You feel like these people are real, and it's what makes part of them so likable, really. And it's kind of one of my biggest issues with Guess Who, which completely different topic in and of itself, but every episode is so isolated from one another.
And that was intentional, but it's just like that may appeal to some people, but I agree. I prefer the more, you get to know them. Like
Yeah.
Mystery Incorporated, what's new? I like all that stuff.
Yeah, I just like the more human aspect of them. But I guess kind of moving on to the next thing that I kind of wanted to analyze as well, once they get to the weather station, they're left on their own, is when we first really fully see them interact with, you can call it the snow monster, the abominable snowman.
Did you do that on purpose?
No,
Just
the Yeti, whatever. There's many names. My kind of thoughts on this, I think it's a good villain. Obviously, it fits the climate very well. My only thing is when you see it as a silhouette at the start, I was like, oh, that's a scary monster. I quite like that. Like, kind of, uh, especially with all the mist and stuff that you kind of see around it on the first appearance. I was like, okay, they're setting something good up here. I almost think when you see it so close up, kind of looks just a bit, I don't know what word I want to use, but I don't find it as intimidating. I think it becomes less scary as the movie continues. Almost like the kind of look for it changes. JayBee, what's your thoughts? Did your kind of thoughts on the monster change throughout? Was it that you just kind of had a set thought?
I think you're right, but I think that's always the case. I think in every instance where the monster's teased and then it's shown.
I can think of an instance where I disagree with you. In Alien Invasion or Alien Invaders, it looks like broccoli as a silhouette. And then when they light it up, it becomes scary. Like, that's the only one where it's actually hilarious until you see it fully.
Yeah, maybe. But I think more often it's like, I mean, it's the mystery. Like, what is the number one fear for human beings? It's the unknown, right? So it's kind of like, oh, is this scary? But I like the design for the abominable snowman here. I think it's a bit generic. Like I would happily go for something a bit more like Patrick Troughton Doctor Who, where it's like a fur coat and it's a bit more niche. But this is the standard look for the Yeti, and I like it a lot. There's even some instances where like the Yeti's hair is like blowing, and it just looks so fluid and dynamic that I really do like that. So yeah, I like the Yeti in this.
And Dan, what about you? What are your thoughts on the villain in this one?
Yeah, I thought the design was really cool. I think it looks really threatening. And obviously with Scooby Doo, they do like reuse villains quite a lot, like sort of similar types, and we've had like snow monsters before. So I thought this one was a nice change. Like you say, yeah, I can see what you mean about it starts off a lot scarier and then you become a bit more used to it. But I think in general it was a good design. I think it could have looked a lot worse. So I liked it. It looked threatening. I'd have been scared if something like that was chasing me.
Yeah, definitely. And Sophie?
Yeah, the one thing I love about the Watchmen movies is like they bring back iconic, well-known like legend and monsters and stuff like that, and to have like the Yeti, like add to like the bow for this one. Yeah, I can't. For me, it's not like the typical Yeti that I'd think of, so I kind of like the change that it's something completely different from what I mean. I think I'd do more like a snow ghost from the Scooby Doo Are You series. It's quite nice. His eyes are a little bit menacing. I find them a little bit freaky. But the rest of him, as the movie goes on, he isn't as scary. Like he becomes he's a fluffy Yeti, like that's what he is.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, in terms of them being fluffy and stuff like that, towards the end as well, they try and humanize them a bit. Like, we'll obviously get to that point, but they save somebody. They're not the bad villain that you expect them to be. So you kind of want to see that softer side to them too, I guess. And so I think the next thing I've got in my notes is honestly just the words weird temple. So I'm kind of passing over to JayBee a little bit here as to what this temple scene is here to do and achieve.
So I don't know, but I'll tell you
As
what
long as I'm not the only one that didn't know,
I'll
that's
tell you
good.
what it does for me. So obviously we get this temple, the secret kingdom of Shangri-La. And to me, I think I'm a bit different to Sophie in that I'm not completely I don't dislike the winter, but the winter time, apart from like the red and green of like kind of festivities, it has the most depressing color palette to me. Like it's white, grey, blue. And that for a whole movie, I think would really start to like bog me down personally as someone that would run into a garden center this time of year, like, oh, look at all the multicolored lights. Like, I just want to like, smush them up to my eyes and go a bit crazy. Like, that's the type of person I am. And so to have that color palette of the blues and grays this whole movie, I think I would literally, even if it was the height of summer, come away from it with seasonal depression. But this Shangri-La, it just gives us a bit more of that green and yellow and more vibrant blue that, if nothing else, I'm just a bit like, good. Now we get a little break. So, yeah, that's what it does to me.
Sophie, what is the Kingdom of Shangri-La for you?
Well, I've never really timed watching the movie, so I don't know, if it's halfway in the movie, near the end of the beginning. Like when I'm watching a movie, I'm just watching the movie. But always when this bit comes on, I'm like, oh, that's the end of Act 1. We're moving on to Act 2. Like it's such like I don't get it. Is it for the gag that they found like the Yeti, like he's not actually the picture with Shaggy holding the toothpaste and toothbrush? I mean, I don't get it. I don't know why. It wasn't necessary. But yeah, it's kind of like if you need a toilet break or snack break, you go there.
Yeah,
like
this is the
literally an
intermission.
advert.
The Shangri-La.
Dan, what about you? Did this scene did it resonate with you at all, or did you take a different meaning from it?
No, I'm pretty much like Sophie. I know we discussed earlier that this film feels a bit drawn out, and it seems like that. I just think, why is this happening? I didn't get it. I just thought it's pointless. Like you really could have cut a lot of this out. And that weird guy, the weird temple master guy, is just bordering on a stereotype. I'm like, why are you here? Yeah, I did enjoy this film, but I don't know, it was just things like this. I just thought this could have been cut so much. Like this could have been a nice breezy pace, and it was just scenes like that. I was just like, no.
I'll just say it kind of felt like the samurai sword when the Scooby and Shaggy went to the Green Dragon, but that kind of had context. There was a reason why it went like in a weird direction. This one was just put in for no reason.
I was thinking the same thing.
That scene, I was like, "Where's the Brian Cox voice dragon? Like, what? Like, what did they cut that out? What is this?"
And interesting you mention Dan, the person at the temple, because something that I found about them was their animation was jarring to me. So you had Shaggy and Scooby walking, and obviously Shaggy's got a very elaborate walk. He swings his arms as he walks and stuff like that. This person was hovering. Their legs didn't move, their arms didn't move. It was like a Dalek. Like it was just a continuous movement forwards. And nothing else was moving other than just they were progressing with the background going behind them. It was just a bit strange to focus in on, especially like I said, I think just in contrast to Shaggy, because Shaggy was directly behind him. Because I think, and I don't know if this is kind of a way that they go about animation or stuff like that, but like for the gang, obviously they've got decades worth of profiles that they can go back to for side shots, for how they walk and stuff like that. There's a scene later in the snowplow where they look at the back of Velma and Del's head. And obviously for Velma, you've got that 3/4 profile that you go to, but he's just a hood with a bit of fur. And I was kind of wondering if that's kind of part of what that was, is just it had been too difficult to get different like 3/4 profiles and stuff for each character. So they just made it easy and just like put a hood up to avoid that.
Difficult and probably budget as well.
Yeah, but that was a completely random thing for me to pick up on, so kind of skimming over that. Ultimately, around this time, I think we separate the gang off a bit further, and then some of them get reunited. I'm looking at JayBee for some.
Is this before or after the chase scene? Like, there's a few in this.
It gets confusing because I think we're now at the bit where they go into the mine, but there's a bit where they go into the mine, and you've got Fred and Daphne together, but then there's another bit where Daphne doesn't separate off with
she wants
Fred
to be with Pemba.
There's a lot of people not being together in this movie, and I find it somewhat difficult to keep track of. But I think we're on the mine scene. So they go in the mine, they see that the professor's stealing crystals. So in my mind, when I was watching this when I was little, I was like, oh, this all makes sense. He's the bad guy, because when he disappeared at the start, that's when the Yeti showed up. and he's stealing the crystals now. So to me, that was kind of case closed. He's the bad guy, but then the Yeti turns up and we've got the full chase sequence. And of course, with it being the What's New era, we get proper chase music, stuff like that. That's the one thing that, even if I thought this was one of the worst movies I've ever seen, which I don't, but even if I did, I will always be grateful that we have chase music
that would
in What's
throw me
New.
off now, because even now, watching something, say, thinking to like modern day, what I watch now, say A Death in Paradise, whenever they bring in a somewhat notable guest star or someone that I'm familiar with, like there was one that they did recently, was it with Keith Chegwin? I don't know, there was something like that. Like the most notable name, 9 times out of 10, is going to be the
Well, yeah, do you
culprit.
remember when they did the one with Neville Longbottom from Harry Potter?
Yes, and
You knew as soon as he
yeah,
was on the
yeah.
screen, it's like, "Hi,
Oh,
it's gonna
he's
be
gonna
you."
get the big moment. And so even watching this, like it would trick me to a point where I'm like, oh, they've got Alfred Molina, so he's gonna get the big iconic line. Like, so it wouldn't not work on me if we're gonna say that it's a bit obvious later. Like, there are things that are pointing me that direction as well.
Dan, do you remember the first time you watched this and kind of get into this scene? If it was kind of, oh yeah, it's got to be him for you, and then all of a sudden the Yeti shows up, or what your thoughts were?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know I watch a lot of American shows like Special Victims Unit, and you know when they have to investigate, like, say, three suspects, it's always, if it's a known actor, I'm like, well, obviously it's them that are involved because they're not going to pay them. But no, I don't know if I knew it was Alfred Molina when I first watched this, but I remember, because had this been like a Where Are You episode, 100% it would have been the professor.
Mm.
But I remember it was just too obviously signposted. It was him, and for What's New, I knew they wouldn't do that. They were very good at sort of, like there was that roller coaster episode
Yeah,
where all the clues were leading
misdirection.
to the one sister, and Velma was like, "All those clues were too obvious. We knew it wasn't her." So I kind of guessed. I was like, they wouldn't let it slip that early in the film as well. I was like, we're only halfway through or whatever. I was like, so no, I mean, I thought it was a good way they did it, but I wasn't really tricked. Purely as well, because I remember watching this for the first time and thinking, why is that sister character here? She is so pointless to the story. And then I was like, oh, she's involved, isn't she? Because otherwise, why is she in this film? So yeah, no, it didn't trick
Mel's
me, but that's just
wifey.
yeah, that's just literally just because I knew What's New. I knew they would defy those stereotypes.
And Sophie?
Yeah, I can't remember the first time I watched it. I probably, when I was like literally a child, I probably would thought it was him. So for it not to be him, that's really like, a surprise. I kind of like the direction that they took it, it's just a movie. um, it is what it is. Yeah, not an awful lot. I mean, he's not the best villain. Well, he's not the villain, but the characters, I mean, the good personalities, good stories, but they are still pretty bland, all of them at the same time. So they've got nothing to go off.
No, I can agree somewhat with that. And I think, again, this part of the movie I do find confusing because it's just lots of splitting up and different things happening. So ultimately, with a few things of like splitting up, and we get to a point where so Shaggy and Scooby need to ski down the mountain, and Velma's in a snowplow with Del. I don't know how we get to that point, but we do get to that point. And so they set up the ramps and stuff ready for them to ski down, but Velma and Del get kind of caught up in it. And it's the abominable snowman that saves them. So I think at that point we're starting to, I don't know, it's always interesting to kind of not just see it as an evil motive of why the person did it. Like you start to see that there is some good character there.
Yeah, it's a bit like the old King Kong thing, the kind of beastly creature with a bit of a heart. But again, I don't really take much stock in stuff like this, mainly because of how Scooby is now, like looking back in hindsight, because it already is a foregone conclusion that this Yeti is a person in a suit or a mechanical thing. It's not an actual Yeti that you like. Yeah, sure. Obviously, they're gonna save someone that they know, or they don't want to get done for like a murder charge. They'd rather just be done for like menacing that, yeah, they will save someone. So it's an all right moment of like clue, but just a foregone conclusion at this point.
Yeah, I think like you say, it's a very foregone conclusion. It's very much just a who's the only person not there. And obviously that was Minga. So that's the unmasking. By that point, I personally didn't see it as a surprise. Like we didn't I can't actually tell you what Velma's explanation is for this because my explanation was just okay, if they're not there, it's them. Do you remember what Velma said the reason was? Is it I just remember Minga saying, oh, I just wanted to sit and listen to Del Chillman. And it was like,
Yeah, was it not to make him happy or something? Was it not to make Del like think there was
Oh
a
yeah, because
Yeti?
he wanted to see a
I don't know, that's
Yeti.
what I thought. I think. I'm not sure. That
Hmm.
might be a lie. I don't know.
Do you think Dale thought she was minging?
not one of the American audience is going to have understood what you're just saying. I don't think that's the word there,
Yeah,
is
they do,
it?
if they've got BritBox.
Yeah.
You could have BritBox. Get a BritBox.
So that's the unmasking. Dan, what was your thoughts on the unmasking? Was it a surprise at all? Did you think it was
No.
good, with good motive?
No, I thought it was fairly weak. It says, like I say, I sort of suspected it just because I was like, this character is so pointless. Oh, wait, she's behind the mask. But it just felt like more of a surprise. Like it felt more like they wanted to sort of shock the audience. So they're like, oh, you'll think it's this really interesting professor with this motive, but really it's just, it's going to be her. It's going to be that person. And I just thought, yeah, it was okay. It didn't shock me. It was just kind of like, okay, great. But like I say, I do like this film, but there's just some parts of it where I just think, there's more of an interesting plot there that they just. I think it would have been more exciting if it was the professor and they'd had this whole thing, but the fact that they had it as Ming, it felt more like they wanted to go for the shock value, but it wasn't really that shocking in fairness.
The motive of wanting to get the crystals out and that sort of thing, I can understand that. Whereas creating this entire facade because she's got a crush on a guy was like a
Like, how
little
much
bit
money
too
did she
far.
have to waste that she built this costume just for that?
How
Like,
much time could you be bothered with that? And what's more surprising to
I mean,
me
for
is
Del
he
Chillman.
buys it, and at the end, they're holding hands getting into the mystery
yeah,
machine, like they're happily ever after.
it
She's
worked.
crazy. She's outright crazy. No.
To be fair, if a lass went to that effort for me, and I'm free,
Don't get any ideas. I wouldn't put a quarter of that
a
effort
part
in.
of me is gonna be a little bit like, you know, let's go, let's do some business, you know.
Like, go away. Like, surely you're thinking at that point, this
They
person's
invest that much,
psychotic.
do that. I'm like, you know what? You and I, we can have a chat. You want to go Costa Coffee? You want to do some Starbucking? Like, let's go, let's go.
Sophie?
Um, I feel like there's a lot of interesting concepts, but just not placed in a right way to make it interesting. It wasn't a shock that was Minga. A bit of a wet storyline. Like I agree with Dan. If it was a professor, so be it. Like it would have been good enough for their own. Yes, they went for the shock factor, but the shock factor then led to like it was really boring, like ending. But I don't know. I keep talking about this movie, and the more I talk about it, the less I like it. So I think I've made a decision. But also, I did want to say in my last point is I forgot about like before the professor, the gang finally meets back together again. Like it took the whole movie pretty much for the gang to meet back together, which I've said it and I think we've all said it time and time again. I don't like when the gang's not together solving the mystery. They've got to be together. I didn't mind it for a bit at the beginning, but for it to drag on and like bat and ball back and forth, it did just get really tedious and drawn out as long as it possibly could.
No, I have to agree. And at the end, don't they end up back in Paris?
Yeah.
Apart from Fred.
I kind of don't get why they do that. It's almost like there's some requirement to include Paris in it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've just read, and it is approximately 7,327 kilometers to get from Paris to the Himalayas. It takes approximately 16 hours and 11 minutes.
I
What,
can
by
only assume they had the
plane?
hotel booked for the week or how many nights they were
Why are
staying.
you getting a new hotel? It'd
But
be the end of your holiday.
why didn't Fred travel back with them?
he got lost like Shaggy and Scooby in the
But
jungle.
how? How did
It's
he?
not Home Alone. How's this happening
Why weren't they
twice?
all at the airport together?
Maybe that is
I
like
will
the
admit, I
festive
would have liked that
place.
movie as well. I feel like that jungle would have been good. And just Fred throughout this movie, I love him. Like I like my favourite line of this movie is "I'm totally geeking" when he's got his GPS on his phone. Like he is adorable.
Yeah, they do start to set his character up well here. I do like it. But we are now getting to the verdict point. So JayBee, as always, we're starting with you. For you, is this movie a smash or a pass?
This is such a weird one because I think to me, this is a little bit like a treasure hunt. I think there's so many beautiful, amazing gems within this movie. At least for me, like I think we've got one of our most underrated, even by myself for the longest time, Thomas Chase songs. We've got an amazing performance. One of the last performances in the DTV is from Casey Kasem, and there's one particular sequence when he's flying on that balloon where he delivers this line about setting it to Coolsville and going home, and just the endearing way he says that. I'm like, oh gosh, I do love Matthew Lillard, but I miss Casey Kasem so much. So there are so many gems within this, and for me, it always comes down to the question on if the juice is worth the squeeze, and you know what I mean. Like if you can find those gems and it's worth all the amount of time you've had to take to maybe sift through some things that you're not a fan of, scooping up the sands just to excavate that loveliness. And for me, I think it is. I think there's enough for me that I enjoy that I can just put up with some of the stuff that I'm less fond of. It's definitely not a bad movie in my opinion. It's one that I can put on. So I'm gonna smash this one, but again, I do think a lot of the audience will be going into this like, you know, am I gonna find enough in here to warrant some of the stuff that I'm not that interested in. What about you, Millie? Would you smash or pass Chill Out Scooby Doo?
I think it's one of the movies that I'm most torn on because I'm very nostalgic for the What's New era. I absolutely adore it. From chase songs to the look of the gang, the way stories are told, all that sort of thing. I think that it does have its saving graces. I think obviously, things like Del Chilman being in it is just it's fun. They clearly were going out of their way to make a good movie. And some concepts were there. I think it was Dan that said earlier on, you almost kind of get the feeling that this wasn't the last draft, that there was perhaps a clearer version of this or a way it could have been done differently. I do think cut down and really trimmed down, it would have made a fantastic episode of What's New. It's just this is never gonna be the first movie I pick up off the DVD shelf for Scooby-Doo. But at the same time, when it gets to Christmas, if it's on in the background, I don't think I'm gonna outright complain, but it's never gonna have 100% of my attention either. I think it does have to be a really light smash because there's some nostalgia there for it. I know growing up, I did like it. It's just for me, this is far from the complete picture of an ideal Scooby-Doo movie. But yeah, I'm gonna say a light smash. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a very similar thought. I do like this film. I know I picked up on a lot of faults, and it definitely has those faults. But like you say, it's never one that I'm going to just, I don't know, maybe if it was really, really cold outside, I might think, oh, this one would be a good option. But in general, it's never going to be one of my favorites. But I do like it. Like I say, once it gets going, I think there is a really good storyline there. It has some great scenes. I love Shaggy as the DJ. And I love in general, I do. I think overall it is a positive film. And well, today, when I went to watch it this morning, I have it recorded on my TV, and it was already like the last time I'd watched it was already halfway. So I was like, oh, I've obviously turned it off halfway because I think it's one of those films I never just sit and watch it. I'll just have it on, and then if I have to do something else, I'll just switch it off. But I enjoyed watching it. It was the opposite of when we did that Happy Halloween Scooby Doo, and I went in really enthusiastic, and then as I was watching it, I thought, oh, this really drags on. This is really, really bad. Whereas with this one, I was genuinely enjoying it, and so I'm never going to say, oh, you should definitely watch this, but I would never sort of badmouth it either. So I'm going to agree and give it a light smash.
I think it's weird that kind of expectations thing because I was in a really similar position with you. I was expecting to go into Happy Halloween like loving it, remembering some great things about it, and be like, is this the same movie? What's going on here? But I remember reviewing this before and being quite negative, so I was going into watching this like, oh gosh, not looking forward to this one, and it not been quite as bad as I thought. So try and head in neutral, I guess, because otherwise we're just gonna have the complete opposite reaction. And Sophie, what about you? I know you said going into this you didn't know what you were gonna say, be it smash or pass. So what's your verdict?
I am really torn. I think, like you, I'm a sucker for what's new Scooby Doo movie. Majority of them are brilliant. I love them. I mean, Loch Ness Monster, yes, please. Just this one doesn't quite hit the mark like the other ones. But like JayBee said, the gems in it, can you call them the saving grace? Yeah, because Del's amazing, and like, Casey Kasem scenes, and I think, as I said, being a sucker for a What's New movie, yes, it's not going to be the first choice I go to, but like you've all said, like I'm not going to turn it down if it's on telly. Like I'll have it in the background or whatever. If it's up against, if you only had like this movie and any movie since 2018, it's going to be an absolute smash sort of thing. We've talked about Happy Halloween. We don't talk about it anymore. I think that's the last time we're going to mention it. But I think from that time, it wasn't the best one. But I am really torn. I want to say pass, but I think because I know what has come after and of the time period, it's going to be the tiniest light smash, just the lightest, just tipping over.
Yeah, it's
I
just
wouldn't say
scraped
pass,
through for us all.
but it is just tipping over just a little bit.
Yeah. It's smash for all of us, but it's getting towards the bottom of what the smashes are. Definitely just scraping through. But there certainly was some posters, like we say, like Del Chillerman, and it was a privilege to go over this movie and a couple of this person's other works in an interview we have coming out this week. So the people that we are interviewing, like we said, as the series of Christmas reunions, we were delighted to bring back Joe Sickler. It's always a pleasure to speak with him. And joining us, we also were delighted to speak with Tristan Cole.
Yeah, so that's amazing. So that's Joe Sickler, writer, director, and producer of, I think, pretty much every single one of the What's New Scooby-Doo era movies, which is absolutely incredible. And also Tristan Cole, who has been the background painter on pretty much all of them and a lot more. Really fun interview. I think it fits lovely within the December schedule. Obviously, we kicked it off strongly with Kate Melton, Nick Pilatus, which was mind-blowing. And then there was Chris Bailey and Mike Myler, which I loved a lot. It was very, very last minute, but from here on out, we are back on with our planned schedule, which is just absolutely amazing. So there's this one, which will be our Christmas special, lots of hidden gems in it, like with the movie, including some never before seen art, background stories on Iwo Takamoto. I could go on, but it's just absolutely amazing. And it's another really long one, so that's fantastic. So yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Can you ramp? Because my voice is going.
Yeah, of course. So
Oh.
that interview will be premiering at 10 p.m. UK time tomorrow. The premiere for that will probably be live now to join. And stay tuned as well, because this time next week we have our final announcement of the December reunion. So stick around for that as well. Thank you so much for watching, and please like, and we need to go through as well. So Dan, where can people find you on the internet? So sorry, JayBee normally does this.
No, it's fine. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at danfaz94.
And Sophie?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Scooby Doo Doo for life.
And all those links will be in the description below. Again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.